Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our self-determination conference, and hope everyone's having a great time. There's a lot of walking here, so you're getting your steps in, I think. So I hope everybody has comfy shoes on, or we'll all be barefoot later, huh? So on the table, I've left some things that I'm going to tell you about this morning, and these sessions are an hour and a half, which is a long time to sit. So please, if you need to get up and stretch, you want to walk to the back corner, you want to take a break, please do so. We do not want you sitting here being uncomfortable sitting in the chair for that long. If you need something to doodle on, let us know. We'll find you something to use. There's some papers on there that you can doodle. That is not going to offend me at all. I will tell you that this is a very, I'm going to stress that one more time, very informal session, because it's about real life, and real life is informal. We do not know how every day is going to go. We don't know the uniqueness that that day is going to bring to us, or a challenge that that day is going to bring, or something that's going to be the best thing that happened. Every day is different for everybody in here. There's no two people that probably could say they have the very exact same day. Even if you live in the same home, people still have different days. So this is the same thing. We want you to share. We want people to hear what other people do for a successful life, and what's working, and what are some of the challenges and barriers that you have. We can work together. Maybe you're having a challenge of something, and one of our presenters up here has had that same challenge and they've overcome it. Let's talk to one another. Let's share. Let's be a community today. So that is why we're here. And I will ask, though, if you do have a question, that you make sure to raise your hand and give us time to get a mic to you. We have an interpreter in the back here, and we want to be respectful. We also have people that are joining us virtually today, so they are on the computer or their Zoom. We want to make sure that they can hear the questions too. And what we find is it's hard for the interpreter if you don't have the mic, and please speak slowly so that she can get down what your message is. And this way we're being respectful if anyone's on Zoom. Okay, any questions? If anyone needs a restroom and you haven't had the chance to look for them, right straight out, go to the right, straight at the end of the hall, there's restrooms too. So if you need anything, please let us know. Sarah's my partner in crime today back there, and she works for GT Independence, and she came from Ohio. So we want to give her a warm welcome to Wisconsin. They actually, self-determination is everywhere. They actually had their conference 2 weeks ago in Sandusky, Ohio, lo and behold, at the Kalahari. So their Kalahari is not quite as big as ours, but it will probably get there someday. So, but they had a great turnout. People, I don't know if anybody got to see the dancers before you walked in here. I'm sure you could hear them. We just have some really awesome things happening here. So please take the time to stop by the booths. There's a lot of exhibitors. It's a long stretch, but it will be worth your walk. We're going to be talking about MCOs. We're going to talk about ICAs. We're going to talk about FEAs. And I know to some of you that's foreign language. We're going to explain some of that to you today. Just so that you know, and they are all here. So please take the time to go to the exhibitor booth so that you can meet everyone that's in this industry and kind of find out what they're doing here and why they're doing what they're doing. So the conference title is Being Curious. So one of the things I want to share with you today is, if you come by our booth, we have a sign that says 269. On your table, I threw those out there. You're welcome to take them. And if you want more, if you are self-directing your services, we want other people to know about self-direction. This is an awesome way, option, choice that you have to stay in your homes and get the services that you need, still living independently with some assistance. And a lot of the waivers, they're called home and community-based waivers. So if you ever see the term HCBS, that Your curiosity is today that you're going to walk away knowing that stands for home and community-based waiver. Those waivers have within them self-direction. Unfortunately, not every state. Wisconsin is a state that we actually have self-direction in our waivers. So we're not one of those, but there's 269 waivers and only about half of them have self-direction in them. So we're trying to get that message out there that everybody that self-directs, keep talking about it, sharing with people, letting people know how successful it is that you're not in a long-term care facility, that you're able to stay in your home, you're able to choose who you want to be your workers. There's a lot of benefit to that with your outcomes and what your goals for life are. So we just want that message out there. Until this came up at our office, I'm going to be honest, I didn't know there was 269 waivers and that not everyone had self-direction. So we want to make sure that everyone knows that. I kind of want to get a feel for our room. So do we have people that are currently in the room getting services through a long-term care program? When I say that, I mean through a managed care organization, through family care, or through the IRIS program. Can we raise our hands if we're doing IRIS or family care? Okay, okay, thank you. Thank you. Do we have care managers in the room? Kind of. Okay, so an IRIS, I was going to say IRIS consultants, care managers. Yeah, yeah. Okay. And do we have guardians, parents, support staff, caregivers? Okay. So as you can see, everybody's day is different that's in here. Everybody has a different reason that they're here and part of this conference and what they're going to learn. So I hope that you take something away, even if it's just one little piece, you know, that's worth your time to be here today. Even if it's meeting who's at your table and meeting a new friend, that's worth being here today. So our goal today is what's working in your self-directed life, and not only what's working, but what isn't working. And let's talk about that if we can. So self-direction, it's all about choice, you guys. Everybody in here has a choice. So when you get up in the morning, does the majority of people in here like toast? Have you ever made toast? Okay, you have. Okay, okay. Or bagels, you know, something that you put in the toaster. Some people warm their bagels up, some people don't, okay? Some people like it lightly toasted. Some people like to turn that up and it's really dark and almost burnt. Not my thing. Who likes jelly? Who likes peanut butter? A lot more hands. How about crunchy peanut butter? How about creamy peanut butter? There's all different kinds of peanut butter. And I bet if I went around and asked you guys, well, what kind of jelly? We're going to get orange. We're going to get rhubarb, strawberry. We're going to get grape. We're going to get all kinds of different answers, right? We're also going to get, this person likes crunchy peanut butter. This person likes the creamy peanut butter. The crunchy peanut butter maybe isn't for you because you have a nut allergy. You know, we're going to get all kinds of different answers here. Some people might, if they're doing a bagel, they're going to put cream cheese on. Some people like plain cream cheese. Some like strawberry cream cheese. Somebody else likes the veggie cream cheese. The story of this is, and the moral of this is the fact that everybody in here, if I brought in toasters and bread and some options, you would all choose probably something different. It's not going to be, everybody's going to choose the wheat bread with the crunchy peanut butter. Somebody else is going to choose the white bread with the grape jelly. That's what we're talking about. Self-direction is about choice. We really want people to understand, and I can't drive this home enough, you each have choice. You have a choice who's in your life. You have a choice who's going to be your provider. I know that I'm going to talk to some of these people up here that are our presenters today, and they're going to tell you that maybe they've had a caregiver that didn't work out for them, or a support person that didn't work for them, and what they did about that. So we're going to talk about that, and I'll let them share what they did so that you know that you do have choices. So this basically is self-direction refers to an individual directing their own life. This is your life, your choices, based on the understanding of what you want in your life, okay? Maybe some people have laundry in their basement and they can't do their laundry in their basement because they can't go down steps. Maybe somebody has laundry upstairs, but they can't reach in and out to get their laundry out. Things that make or break someone's day that are just natural things that you want to do in your own life and take care of. You don't necessarily have to do those on your own. There are ways that we can do some of these. So it's really understanding what your needs are. We're going to be talking to an ADRC today. She's going to explain, share your needs, talk about them. Don't tell people, I can do that on my own. I don't need to do this. I don't need to do that. Oh, that's okay. So, and a lot of times we all want to be able to say, oh, I can do that. I had Sarah and another coworker today, LaToya, let us help you bring everything in. And my answer last night, I'll get it, you guys, I'll get it. And this morning I got here and I couldn't get everything in my first load through with my wagon. I'm like, hey guys, I do need your help. I should have just accepted their help last night when they said it, but I was like, oh, I can do it. I can do it. Little history lesson. And I know you can't see this and really it's okay. But home and community based is what the HCBS is all about. And there's a quote up here from Emma Thompson. Being disabled should not mean being disqualified from having access to every aspect of life. You should be able to have services so that you can stay in your home, your apartment, wherever you want to live. So back in 1981, there's probably people that weren't even born in 1981 in here. But back in 1981, there was a state-funded community options. Then it goes to 85 and 98 and 2006. Oh, it's got 83 in there. Sorry, I got to look at the drop downs. But in 2018, what's very unique about Wisconsin is we do have self-direction statewide. You don't have to live in a certain community. Iris program, family care, it's available statewide, you guys. So you have those as options available to you. It took a while. 1981 to 2018 was when Dane County came on board because they did county by county, some different regional geographic areas. But now it is statewide. So just know that it's not based upon, hey, I live in, you know, the North Woods. Do they have services there? They do. Just know that there's services everywhere. Sometimes it's a little more difficult if you're in a rural area when you're talking transportation or something like that. That doesn't mean we can't talk about it and try to work it out. So it does take time. Forgot my clicker here. So the objectives today is the ADRC, which that stands for Aging Disability Resource Center. That's your starting point. So I have Katie here who's going to talk to us, and I'm going to ask her some questions about the ADRC, and she's going to share with you, what does that ADRC do? So if you have questions for an ADRC, ask. Every county has an ADRC representative. There's not an ADRC in every county. Right? There's a few counties that cover
some of them
multiple
are
counties.
like consortiums, but I think a lot of those still might have even a physical location of some form.
Okay.
Potentially.
Okay. So she's going to talk to you about, what does the ADRC do for you? Why do you need to start at the ADRC? What kind of choices should they be telling you about? And if you're not hearing about them, make sure you ask. She's going to tell you how to be prepared going into the ADRC. You know, what do you need to do? What do you need to know before you go so that you feel there's value for you to be there, and that you can test them for saying, I know that there's this for a choice for me, or I know that I have this as an option. To go in being informed is really important. So they're your groundwork. They're the foundation of where you're going to start. So we've got Katie here that's going to talk about that. And knowing what you can ask and should ask to live a life you're choosing. There isn't a person up here that's not going to address that one because they've all been there. And I can tell you, Dolores is going to be telling you, you sometimes have to really advocate and fight the good fight, but don't give up. And she'll share that. And knowing what some of the barriers and challenges that you might face, how to overcome those. A lot of that has to do with being informed so that when you go in, you understand what you should, be asking and know how to ask it. Megan, I'm going to ask her to share a story of something that happened to her recently and how she overcame something that she was dealing with and needed some additional services. And then we're going to talk about tips for managing your budget. I have some people in here from the state. We're not going to share where they're sitting, but they're pretty important people about looking to us as a fiscal and other people. This is Medicaid funded programs. We all need to be accountable for this. Okay, that's really, really important. So how can you manage some of these budgets so that you're staying within your budget? Or if there is another need, how do you go about asking to see if that's something that's available to you, or is it something the program can cover? Not always can the program cover just anything and everything. So we're going to talk about managing your budget, how that works. Everybody manages a budget, whether it's a long-term care program or it's going to the grocery store. You can't just go in the grocery store if you have $300 in your account and spend $400 for groceries, so it's the same concept when you are managing your budget that you have for your long-term supports. Knowledge is power. We want to talk that, that's why everybody's here today. That's why you're at the conference. We want to learn. And hopefully, again, take that time, go to the sessions, the keynotes, talk to people at lunch. You guys sit at tables, have a conversation about what's working. Hey, do you know, I live in La Crosse, and do you know of any services for this? Or, oh, you live in La Crosse? What do you use for transportation? Let's have these conversations. I just told Megan the other day, I saw a van that I've never seen, and I still can't tell you who it is yet. I got to take a picture of it so I can remember. It's a new one, right?
I saw them too.
Okay. So I think we have a new transportation provider, and I'm not familiar with it. Okay. So the people we have today, I'm just going to quickly, we got Katie. We got Megan. Megan's our family care person. She's in a family care program, and I'm standing in front of everybody. Sorry. So we've got Megan, and we have Megan's new friend and companion, Iggy, but Iggy's kind of resting right. Oh, Iggy's going to stand up so you can see Iggy. So Megan Iggy came when? August?
4th of July.
4th of July weekend. So, and they are graduating together here shortly. So, and then we have Dolores. Dolores is a guardian. She's a mom. She's grandma. Dolores is a huge advocate. She's a founder of Parent University. So she'll be telling us. And I'm not going to do a lot of bios because I want them to all share. They're here. There's no reason for me to read about them when they can tell you about themselves. And we have Julie, and Julie's been in long-term care programs for many, many years. And she can tell you about barriers and challenges and what they've done when they've dealt with that. Her husband of 25, 26 years. Huh? 27 now? I just thought it was your 25th. 27 years. Oh, that was during COVID. Okay, time flies. So Julie and Jason, her husband, so she can share some of the challenges that they've had and how they've overcome those challenges. And they are also here. Do you have a table? I haven't been in there. As an entrepreneur. So if you, after this session, want to say, hey, I wish I would have asked Julie that question, go over by Julie's table. They just got back. This is how much they're into the disability community and representation of our state. They just got back from Anaheim, California. You want to hear some nightmarish stories about traveling and cost for transporting two people that are in chairs? What a nightmare. I mean, she told us this story last night and you just want to shake your head and go, this is a shame. Absolutely a shame. They wanted to charge her $250 to drive her 18 miles. They did. Yeah. 18 miles, guys. Think what 18 miles is from here. That's not even to Madison. $250. Oh, they got a discount though. Yep, got a $50 discount. Yeah, so we'll talk about that. We do know, everybody at the state knows, transportation is really a headache. So this is Katie, and we're going to start with Katie, and she is going to be sharing some information about the ADRC. So Katie is from Brown County. So Katie, do you want to tell them a little bit about your role at the ADRC? Where Brown County is, as everybody might not know as far as the statewide. Go ahead.
All right. So I'm Katie Erickson, and I am an information and assistance specialist. I know throughout the state that terminology is changing. So I believe it's the aging and disability specialist. So you might hear that as well at your ADRCs. So I am in Brown County, which is Green Bay is our major city. So we cover that, Northeast County. A little bit about ourselves too.
Yep.
So I have been there for 13 years. And so I've kind of had a number of roles, but when we transitioned over to the adult long-term care waiver programs, family care and IRIS in 2015, I started working on the transitions from the CLTS waiver to the adult long-term care programs. So I do the majority of those transitions. I help the families through that process, as well as, we are there to answer phones. We take walk-ins, we take emails, we take professional referrals via email. So really we work with, all populations, adult and elder. I'm also one of the long-term care functional screeners. So for those of you that kind of raised your hand and said you're on an adult funding program, that would be that screening process where they ask you all those super personal questions about how you get through your day. So that's also something that I do at the ADRC as well. And actually, the majority, if not all of our information and assistance specialists do those screens. So I know some agencies might have like designated staff that do that. The majority of our staff in that role do those screens.
Do you want to explain a little bit about what a functional screen is in case somebody is ready to go to the ADRC and they aren't sure what they're going to expect for a functional screen?
So if it's okay, I'll step just 1 inch back and just say, when you call an ADRC, it's okay if you're not exactly sure what you're calling about. Really, our job and our role is to help you kind of weed through that. So if someone said, call the ADRC and ask for a functional screen, and you don't actually maybe know exactly what that means or why you're asking for it, part of our role is to help you kind of walk through, well, what does that actually mean? What is that about? So that is a state tool that is used to gather information about this picture in time of your support needs, that we have to ask questions. So it goes through they call them activities of daily living. And I like to say these are about how to take care of your body or your self-care. So you have to excuse me. Sometimes I'm working with, a little bit younger. So I want to make sure that we talk about it in a way that makes sense to them. So bathing, dressing, toileting, transferring. We also ask about those daily living skills or adulting skills, independent living skills. Those are kind of different terms that I use to help, people walk through those. So that's going to be simple meal prep, how we manage our money, how do we do chores and laundry, things around our houses, or wherever we live, even if we live with our families. Transportation, are we able to drive? Are we needing help to drive? So we talk through that. Phone use. So those are things we also talk about. Do you have any needs regarding, behaviors? It's not my favorite word, but it's on the screen that we're going to kind of talk about. Do you have some challenges, in your life, as well as other areas? I mean, it's pretty detailed. The state Department of Health Services, or DHS, does have information on their website about the functional screen. So sometimes people like to gather more information. That's certainly within your right to look at that. And so that functional screen, we need to gather medical documentation, information about, what those diagnoses, medical conditions, things that you have that cause the need for support. The other thing about that is I talk to families and individuals about how these are based on your needs. And so it's not always a fun topic, because we way more like to talk about what are all the cool things that make us who we are, right? What are our interests? What are our strengths? So these, on the other hand, unfortunately, are all about what we need help with. And I would like to see one adult that doesn't need help with something in their lives, right? But that's kind of another important thing, is to be open and honest about the things that are challenging for you. Especially as a parent or guardian, I think sometimes you're just so used to the things that y'all do around the house that you don't maybe account for that you're the one providing some of that support. So I always like to ask families that seems like there's not a lot of needs. I say, all right, so when they move out tomorrow, what are the things that you're going to lose sleep over? So really just kind of helping work through some of those challenges and getting the most appropriate picture in time. So that screening, once it's done and calculated, it's just a button, it's nothing fancy, tells us the eligibility that someone may have. Do you want me to talk a little bit about eligibility, or?
Yep, you can go right into, because what I have up here is like the functional eligibility and then the financial eligibility.
Yeah.
So what we're wanting to do is to share with you to try to go prepared. They're going to be asking some of these questions. And if you waited for a meeting that worked in your schedule with their schedule, you don't want to get there and then it's like, okay, you need to make a list and you need to bring this, and now you need to bring this, and now you need to bring this. And then you have to schedule another meeting because you weren't as prepared as maybe you wished you had been. And then there's a frustration level that sets in, because it's like, wow, I waited for this meeting. I was looking forward to this meeting to get there to talk to these people. And now I have to go back home. Why didn't they just tell me this? So we want you to go in prepared. And that's another thing when you're talking and making the appointment. I'm sure they're probably telling you, I would make sure that I had a piece of paper and a pen at hand when you make that phone call, so that you can write down who you talk to, what time your meeting is, but then also what they're telling you that you really should probably bring along with you. You still may need to have another meeting at another time, but you want to go in as prepared as possible. So if you want to go into the other things so that they're ready for these types of questions.
Yeah. Well, and I also to kind of attach onto that, like, I think once you've decided you've stopped learning how to do your job, it's time to move on. So to add to that, if you guys have ever had an experience where you're like, I wish someone would have told me that, please find me and be like, hey, you should, make sure you ask people to be aware of this, because I think we all just need to continue to do better and serve people in a way that's more helpful for them. So please feel free. So with functional eligibility, this part can get a little bit more confusing, but I always say someone might be fully eligible, meaning they would have a choice of programs. So family care, IRIS, and then in some counties, there's partnership. So we actually do have partnership in our county. So we would, that would be one piece. This is kind of that functional eligibility. Some people, due to the nature of their disability, may be only eligible for family care, or they may not have any eligibility. So that was something that the ADRC should talk about with you. And then also, depending on what those results are, your rights to appeal and how to do that should the outcome be something you weren't expecting. And that's something that we should be telling people during that screening appointment. So this is what would happen if the results were not what we expected. So that,
Yep, let me bring it back. We want the interpreter to be able to hear so that they can interpret. And if somebody's on Zoom, can you tell if we have anybody on?
It kicks me up.
Okay.
I just had a question about, you said that maybe somebody would only be eligible for family care. And when does that happen that somebody doesn't have the option to choose Iris?
Thanks. I am.
so one of the instances that someone may only be eligible for family care is if they have what's called the state definition of developmental disability. So there's a state and there's a fed def. So with Iris, I believe you are required, if developmental disability / intellectual disability is your target population, you have to have a federal definition, and that's more detailed. It's based on how many your needs based on your disability. So does that, yeah. And then you also that takes us to the next step, which is,
That's fine. This is good. You guys ask your questions, because if you try to remember it, we're going to talk about other things. So go ahead and ask. Go ahead.
Thank you. So you were talking about some things to remember before your appointment. Is there like a checklist on the ADRC website or something, like what, things to ask, or before you go to your point, like before you go, here's your checklist of things to bring or consider, something like that to help people prepare?
That's a good question. I actually do not believe that we have anything. We have some that is related to the financial piece, but not so necessarily related to the functional piece, so the screen piece, because if we're coming out to see you and we need medical records, we would obtain releases from you, but that's something that might be a good thing to think through. So yeah, I can, and I don't know if other ADRCs necessarily do.
Do we have anybody else from an ADRC in here? No. Okay.
Okay. All right. So, yep.
Oh, sorry. Well, I thought you were waving to somebody like, hey, hi. Sure.
All right, so once you meet federal definition, is there ever an instance where someone would fall off federal to go to state? Once you hit federal definition, can you bounce back to state?
You got her thinking.
And I know I actually have a hearing, so this is for all the people that might not be willing to say they do too. So that's a great question. The ADRCs do the initial eligibility determination for the programs, meaning we do the first screen. So if they're on the program and that happens, it might. I couldn't tell you the specifics. We don't do rescreens. We don't do annual screens. That would be within your program. So if you're in Iris, you've enrolled in Iris and you have a new screen, it stays there. So, and then you have the right to appeal that if that does happen to someone. Kayla, did that answer? So I couldn't tell you the logic behind it, because that would be way above my.
Yeah, just like me, I'm done. It's a microphone.
Yeah.
Me.
Yep.
Okay. Reason why I'm not eligible for Iris or family care, because I'm making over too much money. Said I got Tom Michaels helping me with private pay.
Okay,
And he's helping me out with the bills, dentist, doctor's appointments and all that. I pay him. And then plus I'm my own guardian and my own payee. I make the decisions.
okay.
And you never heard that before. This is new. That's how it is.
So that is true. There is times that you will go and you will go through a functional, you'll go through the financial, and then as Katie, I mean, not everybody that walks in the door, they're going to walk out being eligible. So you need to be prepared for that as well.
I'm an Iris consultant and I have had someone go from Iris and no longer be an Iris and have to go back to family care. And it wasn't just Dee Dee, she was physical and she kind of exaggerated her needs. And that's how she got an Iris. And you have to be nursing home level of care to get an Iris. Whereas family care, you just need to have help and be eligible for Medicaid.
Thank you. Anybody else for Katie right now? Okay, go ahead. You want to talk about the financial eligibility?
and I wanna
piece
make
and how
sure
to be
that
prepared.
The rest of our group does.
Right.
It's their time. So with financial eligibility, if you come and you have Medicaid, most likely, then you're good to go, right? Because that financial eligibility is the ability to access Medicaid. So that non-nursing home level of care she brought up, if someone has that and they don't already have Medicaid, that could potentially be an issue. But that's kind of the basics, where if we can access Medicaid, or if you're on Medicaid, that's the financial eligibility piece. And then
What should they be prepared to bring in when they come to have these financial eligibility conversations?
yeah, and I think this is where it's going to be specific to the ADRC process.
Okay,
So if someone is on Medicaid, most likely we've had this conversation because we've done a discussion about you, right? We've done that discovery. We've learned about you. We know kind of what your resources are. So if we already have access to that, we know that you're on Medicaid. We don't need anything. If you're needing to access Medicaid, that's going to most likely be a separate appointment where that person that deals specifically with helping access Medicaid will meet with you. And that's where I think it is a little bit different at ADRCs. Not that we don't all help with that. It's just, we have specific people that might assist with that Medicaid.
okay. What are some of the challenges or that you see your benefit counselors, information assistants, I'm not sure what they're all called in the different ADRCs, but that you see that when people are coming in for their meetings, that maybe their frustration is it that the unknown of what's available is, for the benefit counseling piece?
Yeah.
Maybe share a little bit about how that goes.
Yeah. And just to also add that typically the screening appointment does happen in your home. Now, obviously, if it's ultimately not something that you want, we can abide by that. But from my understanding, long-term care programs will need to do that. But we come to you to kind of avoid some of that challenge if you do have transportation issues. So some of the things I think that can be challenging are, the ADRC is the neutral, unbiased, one-stop shop for information. So we can't tell you what program to pick. We can't tell you what we would do for our family or children. I do get that a lot, and it does break my heart because I feel that because it is a decision that is a big decision. Not knowing what's going to happen on the other side, I think, is challenging for people. Well, what does that mean? How do I know what's going to be covered and what's not going to be covered? So I would say those are some of our big challenges where we don't have the ability to give you that answer because we are not the program, and they are not happy with us if we even remotely, right? Because that, it's their program. It's a managed care. It's Iris. We're not able to say. We can tell you kind of what's the potential service within the benefit package. And we can tell you who to call if you ultimately need support because you're not getting it. So those are the things I think that tend to be hard. The Medicaid piece, I think that's so variable for everyone. What could go wrong? I would say if I had to pick something, it would be someone that might have a lot of resources and they're not eligible for Medicaid, or maybe they signed their house over yesterday to their family, and there's those things called divestment.
Yeah.
So
what advice, or do you provide any advice to someone that isn't eligible? Like, where can they go? What resources are available for them once they leave?
Yep. So ADRCs really are, first and foremost, I share with people a resource center for the community, right? So we are a resource center for Brown County or for whichever county. So we would talk about, are there programs that are lower cost, or if cost is an issue for you? Sometimes we don't have the answer,
Right.
but we would kind of help work with that. So for maybe transition age youth that aren't eligible, we would talk about, DVR still is an option, but still is an option if you're not eligible. So we should all be kind of helping you navigate, well, what do I do now if this is not an option for me?
Right. And I think that's the point that I would really like to make is, if you're not eligible, don't just give up at that point. Just don't go home and say, oh, I can't, I'm just stuck. I'm stranded. I can't do this. I can't. Remove the can and say, I can still find more resources. I can still talk to more people. Sessions like this, or the vendors that are out here on the tables, all of us are here to help provide additional resources. I'm not here just to talk about who I work for and what I do. We're here to say, hey, you know what? I met these two people in here. They're Iris consultants. I'm not an Iris consultant, but you want to know more about Iris? I just found two Iris consultants in the crowd today. Go and they'll tell you more about what does that Iris consultant do, or a care manager that's in the crowd. They're gonna, there are people here. Go talk to those managed care organizations. There's My Choice out here, Inclusives here, Community Care Incorporated. Some of them are statewide, some are in Inclusives in 68 to 72 counties. Some of them aren't in every county, but talk to them, because I'll tell you what, if they don't have the answer, or they don't serve the county you're in, they're going to point you down the way. We are all friends in this community because we want to see people succeed. I have a passion for people to be able to stay in their homes, and I don't care if you're 18 years old coming out of high school, or if you're 90 years old, if you are able to stay in your home, we all know your outcomes are going to be better. So we want that for you. So nobody's going to go out here and say, oh, that's not something we do. Go down and talk. We are here to help people be successful. So don't give up. If something isn't, you know what, you can still call the ADRC once you get home. There's always those questions that come after you leave and you're going, why didn't I ask? You can still call them back. Okay. Don't give up just because maybe it's not exactly what you thought it was going to be. And there's all kinds of advocacy groups that you can learn how to advocate for yourself, or just get that support person with you and you guys advocate together. I've watched this young lady on the end here advocate for herself many, many times, and she's getting better. You guys, there was a time when you had to, her mom sitting here, you had to say, Megan, you got to think of how you're asking that, and then they're going to receive it better. And she is doing phenomenal. I mean, she could probably teach a class on it. So I'm very, very proud of where Megan has gotten over the years, and she will be sharing some of that. So that is a teaser, so that you know that this is going to be a good one with Megan. So enrollment counseling, when they talk about that, they're going to be, well, what's family care? Well, what's Iris? I mean, what does the ADRC, how do you share? Because like you said, you have to be unbiased. You
Yep.
can't, and it's really human nature to say to somebody, well, what would you choose for your family? I've done it. You
Mhm.
go to the doctor and they're saying, well, you could have this procedure. Well, what would you do if it were you? I mean, we all do that because it's sometimes hard to make a decision. So we do want to know, what is it that they can expect? Because why do I need to come if I can just come in and say, oh, I want family care because my neighbor has family care?
Right. Well, I mean, we do have specific like documents that we have to use. There are state documents that are, we can't kind of make up our own, that talk about what is family care, what are the teams in family care, what is IRIS, what's a fiscal age, employer agency, what are the covered services. So I mean, we have to utilize that information. If someone does ask me, well, what would you do? Because I'm a very I'm a little sensitive person, so I do say, well, here's the reason why this is not something I will give you. A, can't, I'll get fired. B, because what one family picks and what I pick is going to be different for everyone. My preferences and what I need out of people is different from you. So I give them ideas like, look through different, disability network chats. I said, but always use those with your own filter, because what one person likes about a program is about their specific experience. And so we have lots of amazing people that work for these programs all throughout the state. So it could have been a specific issue related to a specific, relationship or a person. So I just tell them where to go to kind of like start just doing some of their own research. And then asking them, well, what do you want to experience from a program? And then go back to the sheets that we use. Well, look at, this is what this one says. So,
yeah. And so again, just keep asking questions, and they are limited to what they can't give you. I would use this one or I would use that one.
and we can talk about provider networks,
Right.
With managed care. They will, some of them will say, but that doesn't mean we couldn't contract. But sometimes you have someone that's just, there's one thing and they don't know how to make a decision. So it's just something, we bring up the networks just to kind of view that too.
Yep. So one of the last things that I want Katie to share, and it's not that we can't go back to Katie too, if you have other questions or she wants to add to one of the other stories here, but with Katie and an ADRC, from our perspective, I work for a fiscal. So in my perspective, I hear about the money part of it. And sometimes what I hear is that common term, well, the ADRC said that I'm going to get this amount of money a month. And so she's going to explain to you where their limitations come as far as what they can tell you when they look at your financial eligibility, because they are going to talk about money. They're going to talk about Medicaid funding and a budget. But the message out there, if you're on the street and hearing, well, that ADRC said I can get, this amount of money every week, and that other program's not going to give me that. So I'm just going to have Katie address that, because that is a myth that's out there, and I'd really like to dispel that.
Yeah, and actually not super long ago, I got an email from a parent that said, well, so-and-so told them that the ADRC told them that they got the max amount, so they don't know why their person didn't. I was like, so, I get real like deer in the headlights, because the ADRC has no access to an IRIS budget. So with IRIS being the program that works off a budget, back in the day, which wasn't a super long time ago, but that is not something we have access to. It is something that you get to then talk about if you choose IRIS with your IRIS consultant. I think the purpose behind that was they want you to pick IRIS because you want a self-directed program, not based on the budget. If I do talk about money or budget, it's just to say that, remember, your personal care, like Medicaid services are separate, right? Because they're not part of that waiver budget. So we just don't have access to it. It's not something we know. It's not something we tell people about. So that's that piece of it.
Right.
What else? Yeah.
Yeah, I think the point is, if a neighbor, if a friend, if somebody that you're sitting with is telling you, well, I get the max, or I get this, or I get that. Keep in mind what I said about the toast. We're all individuals. Because it's something that's going to work for Megan, work for Julie, or had worked for Albert. When Dolores was doing his budgeting, if it just because it worked for Albert or Megan or Julie does not mean that it's going to work for Vicky.
Right.
Okay. My needs could be totally different. Yeah, I have a lot of the same needs. I eat, I sleep, I do laundry, cleaning's important. I go places. Those are all, but it still is unique to me. What's going to take me to get in a car to go to Aldi or Walmart or to get groceries, it's going to take Megan and Iggy a little bit longer. It's going to take Julie and Jason a little bit longer. They're not going to hop in their car and just go down the street and it's going to all happen. There's other needs that they need some assistance with to transport them there, so you can't just go because you have the very same needs of eating, sleeping, and shopping. It's going to be unique to your needs. It's also going to be unique to your area. Somebody that's in an urban area or the rural area, it's going to make a difference if you have to travel to Wausau and you live out in the country versus I live in Onalaska, Wisconsin, and Festival's 2 miles from my house. I mean, there's all these variables that are in there. So keep that in mind. Respect that your neighbors, friends, everybody wants to help you, but the experts are really where you need to go so that you're making informed decisions. Okay. All right. So last, one of the things here that I want to, yep. Yep, go ahead. Oh, that's right.
I just wanted to clarify one of the consultants over here.
Uh-huh.
I am not a nursing home level of care and I am on Iris. So that's a general rule, but not the only.
Okay. Is it a definition piece? I don't know. Okay.
No clue.
Okay. Does anybody, do you guys know over here? Margaret?
What you were just saying is so true, that everything is so individual that
Right.
it gets really problematic to start teasing
Yep.
that out. But yeah, I believe that is a definition.
Okay.
And
And a definition can be interpreted in more than one way. Okay. All right. Thanks, Julie. Thank you. So a couple other things that I have up here to follow here is just, and again, probably a little harder to see because, well, this one isn't, that maps are going to be probably, but this is the long-term care programs that we're talking about. So IRIS is include, respect, I self-direct. So that's what that term means. In case everybody's going, what's IRIS? Why did they name it IRIS? That's what it is. They thought when IRIS started, it was going to be 5,000 people in the program, and there's 26,000 people self-directing. As I mentioned earlier, 269 waivers out there. Wisconsin, it is an option. We have seen huge growth since COVID, and people were back home, left assisted living facilities, went back home. There's a lot of growth right now in self-direction. There's a lot of benefit to it. So as these ladies over here spoke about, they are IRIS consultants. So they are through what's called an IRIS consultant agency. So if you hear the term ICA, and again, there's a lot of them out here. We have TMG, we have First Person, Advocates for You, Milk is out there, Midstate, Independent Living is out there, Connections is out there. They're all here. So you can talk to every single one of them and make your own decisions by talking to them. Family care, same thing. They're all here. Inclusa, iCare, Community Care Incorporated, My Choice, Lakeland, they're all out here. So you do have choices. So we've got the long-term care programs that are for adults. Prior, Katie mentioned the term CLTS, that's Children's Long-Term Services. That's what that means. That's the program up until you're 18. You can actually stay in children's even longer past that, but a lot of times people at 18 start moving into the adult waivers, which this would be your options when you're going. So if you're at an ADRC, I'm just making this story up. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but let's say that you're sitting there and they're talking about Iris, but they're not telling you about family care. Today, you now know, ask about family care, or if they're telling you about family care, but they're not telling you about Iris, ask them. You know, there's two programs. Okay. This map is probably hard to see, but these are the Iris consultants that I just mentioned. The one that isn't here is Progressive Community Services. They have a limited territory. It's around Dane County. They're not statewide. And then the fiscals are all here. So you have GT Independence, you have iLife, Outreach. You might know them as Outreach. They are changing their name to Acumen, or already have, and Premier Financial is out here. So they're all here as well. This map and the next map I'm going to show you, another huge resource for you, is on the Department of Health Services for Wisconsin. If you put in their site, you don't have to do a lot of searching, just put family care map, Iris map, and you will find this. It's going to show you the areas that all of them serve, where they're at, the different counties. This is a beautiful tool. It gets updated, and the website for our state is very informational as far as both of these programs. This is the family care map. Again, I mentioned community care, iCare, Inclusa, Lakeland, My Choice, all of them are out here. Now, the one thing I will tell you, on this map, you're going to see fiscal employer agents. That's GT Independence, iLife, Acumen, Premier. They're the ones that are going to pay your workers. They're the ones that in the IRIS program, if in your budget, you're paying some vendors or transportation, we're the ones that are out there and we're distributing the funds. They're not just going to hand you those dollars. They're going to have it put through a fiscal. In the IRIS program, there are 4. They are certified to be in this program. When you go to the family care map, you are not going to see a list of fiscal employer agents. The reason behind that is you do have choice. A lot of us all work in that same role in family care, but sometimes there's a local accounting firm or others that they've contracted with in their area. So there's a large group in the family care, depending on where that MCO is and where you live.
Just real quick, and I know you
Yep.
you would have said this yourself, but the fiscal employer agents are all statewide.
Yes, yes. I did not say that. That is true. Thank you. Okay. All right. So advice from Katie on how to self-direct successfully. Any just like one thing that you think would really help somebody self-direct with success?
I always say to people, it never hurts to ask. And if you don't understand what you're being told, ask again and make sure you feel comfortable with the information that's being given before you, that's kind of my general for everyone. So yeah.
Okay.
Just get clear information until you can understand it.
Okay. You want to pass it over to Megan? We're going to talk with Megan for a little bit. So, and again, I know you've been sitting a long time. If somebody needs to get up and do that little stretch, we've still got quite a bit of time here, but I don't want you to run out of, energy of sitting here. So feel like you can stretch. So Megan and Julie are in programs. So I'm going to have Megan and Julie talk about their programs, a little bit about themselves, what they use the programs for. Do you use it for transportation? Do you use it for, supportive home care? What does that mean? Is that cleaning? Is that shopping? What is it that you are using it for, just to give you some ideas. I'm not asking them to get down and dirty in their personal lives. I just want them to feel comfortable. And I want to appreciate too that they are being vulnerable and sharing their stories. So we want to be mindful of some questions too. So, you know, if they choose not to answer a question, that is their choice. We're all about choices here. However, I'm sure they will also answer questions if you have some. So Megan, just tell them a little bit about Megan Walsh. What makes you get up every day? What do you do with your day?
So I'm sure you guys have seen on Facebook, there's a meme going around that's saying that like what makes you get up in the morning. It's mainly because like the bathroom, which is true. But then I also have Iggy, and he likes to eat like around 5:30 in the morning. But I don't know. I like to think of myself as a pretty positive person. And so I think that what gets me awake in the morning is that knowing that I can be positive to somebody else and in the community. And like maybe if it's another person that just spilt their coffee on the way to work or something and is having a bad morning, like I can just smile at them and they will know that like, hey, it's okay. Like this person smiled at me and she's way worse than I am. But then there's also people who are way worse than I am. And it doesn't matter what you have going on. I just kind of like think that people are worse than I am. And so that I just try to be a really positive person to them then.
Attitude makes a huge difference, huh, Megan?
It
So Megan,
does.
what are some of the services that you through family care? Because you do self-direct some of your services. So what are some of the things that you self-direct?
So like my transportation, I self-direct that, and like my care workers or like my caregivers who come in. And I know Vicky said earlier that I did have a lady who she was always so wishy-washy when she was going to come. And then she told me that she wasn't going to continue my services anymore, but she didn't exactly like say it in person. She just texted me and said like, hey, I'm not coming anymore. And so I was really blindsided by that. And I thought that wasn't fair because like I had some stuff coming up, like a staff meeting for work. And thank God I didn't ask her for transportation because now I don't have it.
And tell them what you do with your day.
So like I usually wake up around 5:05-ish, and then I feed the dog, and then I take him out to pee, and then I'll finish getting ready.
And what are
And
you
if-
getting ready for?
My job, which
Mhm.
so I work at First Lutheran in La Crosse, and it's with the 3Ks and 4Ks. So the young kids, and that's interesting. Some of them, like I'll be like, hey, mister, let's use our walking feet if they want to run in the hallway. And they're like, my name's not mister, my name is so-and-so. And I'm like, yeah, okay. And so
Let's talk a little bit about choice, Megan. What are some choices that you have made as far as employment for yourself?
So like some choices that I made, like I know it really bugged me. I left my last job just because it wasn't working out for me. I tried and tried everything I could, but it just wasn't working out. And so like, I mean, yeah, I sat there for like probably a few weeks, and I bawled my eyes out because I knew that like that job just meant so much to me. But if you're not happy at it, like why stay there, I guess.
Mhm. Yeah. So Megan did go from, she used to work at the Y and she went and moved to this other daycare. So they were both daycare jobs. Some of the other things is some supportive home care. You have some assistants going out for shopping and that sort of thing, right? Personal cares. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and you were celebrating what this month? 1 year that you've been living.
Oh, living on my own. I moved in. Well, so my rent. So the lease it said you could move in October 1st. But so in Lacrosse, like the whole September 30th and October 1st is Oktoberfest weekend. And I'm right downtown Lacrosse. So my parents were like, yeah, no, we're not moving that week. Which I don't blame them. So it's actually, I have lived there a year the second week in October, but I just tell everybody it was October 1 because it's
Yeah.
easier.
Yeah. So, and so she lives in an apartment. It is on the 5th floor. So it's not like she can just go, oh, hey, come on, Iggy, we're going out quick. She plans these trips outside with Iggy and everything else. And now she has Iggy as a companion in her apartment. So beautiful place. And she's been there a year. So we're super proud of Megan. And mom's probably really proud too, right, Mom? We all know what it's like to have either a daughter or a son living at home with you. Some days can be challenging. Okay, do you want to hold this for Julie? Okay, so Julie's going to talk about her and Jason, or you don't have to talk about Jason, you can talk about you, but a little bit about what is it that you,
Package deals.
yeah, you are 27 years, you're a packet. So what is it that you are using? She's in the IRIS program. So she's an IRIS participant. Jason's an IRIS participant. And they've made some choices to change different things. So she can address that a little bit and what they're using the program for and how it's being successful for you.
Well, we're a little bit of a combination. So in order to make the most efficient use of our budgets, we have broken up what we need in the house so that one of us has the meal prep person and one of us has the cleaning person. So it's not,
Oh, that's
to-
awesome.
so we don't divide that person's time because it's a nightmare with payroll and I don't like doing that. So we divided it between us. So even though we both need help cleaning and we both need help with meal prep, being married, the easiest way of doing that was, okay, you hire this person to clean, I'll hire this person for cooking, problem solved. So that was one of the more creative things that we've done. We do not need to put transportation on because we have our own van that we drive from our chairs, which I really missed on the trip to California.
At $250 for 18 miles. Yeah.
Yeah. And the hour and a half that they said they were on time and weren't. Yeah.
Yeah.
Long trip. But instead of using transportation money, we actually fund one of our favorite activities, and Vicky keeps promising she's going to come see it. Jason and I play for the Power Wheelchair Chippewa Valley Hooligan team. We are 17th in the nation right now, so we're pretty excited about that.
Yeah.
So we put our yearly fee for being part of the team and any repairs to our soccer chairs, plus our soccer camp every summer on our plans, because as you know, insurance will pay for one chair, but not for the fun stuff. So we leave our everyday chairs and that with the insurance, and the fun stuff, which isn't funded, goes over to our Irish budgets. So 2 years ago, because none of us played during COVID, we both needed new tires and new batteries and anything to get playing again. So that all went on our budgets, which was awesome because we did not know how we were going to afford $700 in batteries for us to play. The vendors that we use are actually out of Minnesota and they're such sweethearts. They're just like, send us the paperwork, we'll do it. We don't care. So normally places like that need the money before they'll do the service. They knew that the budget was good for it. They didn't care. They were just like, here's your batteries, have fun, play, we'll do the paperwork, which is always a good thing.
Yeah.
We have our own house. So we actually have the first barrier-free home in Eau Claire. One of my favorite things about building that house was that we went through 13 different builders before we found someone who actually would do the research and find out what it needed to become a barrier-free house. Jason likes to tell once when they had dug the basement and poured all the cement, the builder actually picked him up out of his chair and carried him to the edge of the cement so Jason could see what work was being done once a week. And then
Wow.
he went and built a wooden, really definitely not up to code ramp once they had the floor in. So we could actually go through and we took a blue highlighter and marked on the studs where we wanted all of the light switches for height and where we wanted all of the power outlets for height. They specifically asked in our bedroom where we wanted to plug our chairs in every night. And they put just that outlet on a separate circuit breaker so that when you plug your chair in, it doesn't blow anything in the entire house, because that could have been a lot of a problem.
Yeah. Very thoughtful builder.
Yeah, he's a sweetheart. Even if he went to the wrong high school, he's still a sweetheart. The builder actually kept threatening. I went to the rival high school in Eau Claire.
Oh, how funny.
He kept threatening to put their school logo on the ceiling where he knew I couldn't get rid of it. It's just, yeah. But then with the house also, of course, we live where there are tornadoes. So we had to get creative and find a way to access the basement with 2 power chairs in case the power went out. So part of that repair work, because the house is 18, 19 years old now,
Okay.
I think. And we have a enclosed platform lift. It was a creative solution. It's not a full elevator, so it doesn't have to be certified, but the builder built a big closet around it so that you don't see it unless you know it's there. And part of our budget went to getting the battery backup so that we could get to the basement, both of us, if there's a tornado or whatever reason we might need to hide.
Okay.
Because otherwise, without the battery backup, you can go down, but you can't bring it back up to get the second person.
Oh, okay.
So it was those kinds of things that we had to find creative ways of funding. And so a lot of the things that we've done with our plan are things that we needed done, but there was no way that we could find a way to accomplish it. Everybody always asks, well, what about your workers? That's all on there. It's the extra stuff that I worry about.
Mhm.
The workers will come or they won't, and I'll find a new one. The extra stuff is more important for Jason and I to be able to stay in our house.
Right.
One of the things and I should have sent that picture, but one of the things that up until 3 years ago, that was a big thing on my plan was my service dog, Bella. Anybody that's been coming to the conference for more than 3 years, she was always the only dog that showed up in the after video where the whole room would go, Bella. But that everything for hers. So it was the shots that she needed to be able to be in public and be a service dog. It was her ongoing training that needed to be done. It was her special vest, because the vest that Iggy has, I cannot put that on. I had to have a custom one made that had carabiners on it because I can't work the clips. I had to have custom made leashes so that they had hooks on both ends so that I could hook her to the chair instead of to me. It was things like that where you have to go find someone who can do these things for you. But because they're custom, they're usually 3 times the amount of money as everything else. So I was lucky enough to find people who were willing to do all the paperwork and become vendors. And it was kind of a miracle back then, because I've been through, well, I'm on my second ICA and my third FEA. So I've been through most of them in the state, and I'm finally to the point where I can just send a text and go, I got problems, and like 3 people call me. So I didn't have that back then. The paperwork then was a lot more difficult, and I always tried to make it as easy as possible because I just needed these services. I honestly didn't care who did them as long as they could do what I needed them to do. But it was the barriers that I was coming up against was the financial and the paperwork part. A lot of places didn't want to do paperwork to become a vendor because they were afraid that they would end up with people throughout the state that they'd have to go to. And it was like, no, this is only for me. This paperwork says my name on it. Nobody else is going to call you unless you tell me, hey, we want more clients. Then I'll send them all your way. But for custom things, it was really nice to be able to have these things made immediately instead of having to wait for them.
Right. Well, and I think, a lot of your story is also, Julie, that you've really been mindful of what your needs are and how to build it into your budget and to adjust it so that it works so that you guys can be successful. So.
Yeah, we're not out there to gouge the state for money. We just want the things that we need
to be
active citizens.
Yeah.
It's one of the conundrums of traveling as much as we do with all of Jason's many hats that he wears. People are always asking us, well, how do you deal with your cares when you're gone? Well, we don't. The biggest problem is you have to stay in the state. So we go to Anaheim for that convention, and it was me helping Jason and Jason helping me. That's all we could do. And everything else, well, you gotta wait till you get home on Wednesday.
When you get home. Yeah, because she came from the airport here. So, yeah. So, and we are running, I thought in my head, I was thinking we had till 12:30, you guys, so it's my fault here. I want to have Dolores share some information. Dolores is a delightful person. She will be, are you here through Wednesday? Please stop her in the hall, talk to her. She is delightful. She has so much information. But Dolores, I'm going to put a picture up here of Albert so everybody can see this. So Albert is Dolores's son. Unfortunately, Albert did pass away. And so Dolores is here sharing her stories of how Albert used the programs, and he was in CLTS and then moved into the adult waivers. And Albert, I'd never met Albert, but I'll tell you, I've sat with Dolores and he sounds like he was just a delight and people loved Albert. And so I'm just going to turn it over to you to share some advice on how to be successful in the long-term services and advocating for yourself, Dolores.
Thank you. Yes, Albert was a delight, but don't get me wrong. Albert was a go-getter too. He could act out and he could act bad, but he was still mine. So I had to love him. Any kind of way he acted, he was still mine. I couldn't change that. But Albert was he was a participant for Iris also. And my son had the world in this world. His Iris consultants, I talked to them and told them what his need was. Albert could not hear, he could not speak, and he had a seizure disorder. Although he was born normal, he had bacterial meningitis when he was 2 years old, which caused him to have a stroke while he was in the hospital, and that took his hearing and his speech away and caused the seizure disorder. He was actively in school the whole time. When he was in 4th grade, I went to visit the school. And he was running around with a football when I was taking Halloween treats to the class, and everybody else was doing a teacher-directed activity. Well, Dolores got her little attitude and called Channel 6. Channel 6 came out, and within 2 weeks, Albert had his own interpreter, his own OT, PT, and speech therapist every day while he was in Milwaukee Public Schools. So that caused everybody to wonder, why does Albert have this? And I told him, because I'm his mother. And he deserves an education like everybody else, which might be a little different, but he needs to learn something while he's in the school system. Well, after Albert was getting all these services and he moved on to high school, the parents at the school wanted to know, why was Albert getting these services? The principal, the teachers, everybody. Again, I'm his mother. So what I did is I started having meetings with parents, telling them that he was in the Iris program, and he also had another program, which was his personal cares, Independence First. But Iris was his good program for anything outside personal cares. So we started having meetings, and they saw Albert. I mean, Albert would go to the Bucks games. He had season tickets to the Bucks game, because back in the day, they had a player named Michael Redd who saw that Albert could go to the games. So Iris did the transportation and paid the person to go with him to the games. And so, you know, he had a great life because I'm his mother. But Iris was really good. At one time, Albert got to where he could not walk like he used to walk. And I lived in a house, all bedrooms upstairs. Well, Iris put that $5,000 stair lift in my house. I didn't want the cute ramp that's aluminum that go on the front of your house. Iris paid for that wood stair lift with lights on it in front of my house. My son, I could not pick him up to put him in the car no more. Iris paid $10,000 for a chair to lift him in my car and turn him around and put his seatbelt on it. So I'm not saying I don't like the other people, but Iris was my son's life. And his life in the community was really built where he could do what he wanted to do, because I love the arts, and being in the community and going to the arts made it easier in his life, because he would go to the games, he would go to plays, he would go to different things and be around people so that he could learn that he could fit in all these places. And right now with Parent University, I use the arts with my families. We go to the PAC, we go to Chicago, we go to African Fest, we go everywhere, because the arts is really a learning tool. And if you keep the arts in your life, you can do anything anybody else can do.
Thank you. And so I feel like I've shortened this little bit and I apologize because I was thinking we had another 15 minutes. But I just want to, I think this is a really important quote from Judy Human. Judy was a disability rights advocate. She did pass away this year in March. And her quote is, independent living is not doing things by yourself. It is being in control of how things are done. I think that's really important. It's you taking control of how these things are going to be done in your life. I think we all want that. And then these are our speakers. Let's just give them another round of applause. And a final quote that I think if you really think about this, I can't change the direction of the wind, but I can adjust my sails to always reach my destination. It's all about our own journey. I think you heard each and every one of them talk about being in the community. Dolores talked about Albert. Julie talked about her and Jason. Megan goes to work. She's out in the community. That is important. It's really important. So make sure that you are really sharing, being truthful. Don't be afraid that they're going to go, oh, you can't live on your own anymore. They need to know what it is that you really like to do when you're having these conversations so that you can get the services and you're not needing to go back to the ADRC and saying, hey, I'm not getting what I thought I was going to get. Tell them up front, you guys. There's a lot of people that'll tell us when we talk to them, well, I didn't want to say I couldn't do that because they might not let me stay at home any longer. Be honest, talk, tell them, advocate for yourself. Julie said they went to 13 builders to find a builder that understood what they needed to be successful in their own home. One builder didn't stop. They went to 13. And I know it's exhausting and I know that, you know, it gets very tiring and very frustrating, but they're examples of it can happen, and don't do it alone. Call people to help you. Get that support behind you. There's a lot of people. I'll tell you what, if you call Dolores here, you heard her. Albert was successful. She's his mother. Dolores will help you. Her parent university will help you learn how to advocate. So stop anybody, talk to them during the conference. Dolores is here. Katie's around.